Girls, next one we are going to see what are the causes for BOB, equilibrium. Causes for BOB, disequilibrium. Till now we learned what is BOB, isn't it? Systematic record and components of BOB, capital account, current account and other financial reserves we studied. And then what is favorable BOB and unfavorable BOB, that also we learned. Then we studied the types of equilibrium, that is cyclical, structural and the secular. Now the causes for BOB disequilibrium. What are the major causes? First one, cyclical fluctuation. Already we have studied cyclical disequilibrium, isn't it? The same thing, cyclical fluctuation. That is, because of their changes in the phases and the magnitude, all the countries almost they experience the trade cycle, isn't it? So, when there is a depression, there will be disequilibrium, isn't it? When there is a depression, the world shrinks. They do not do any trade. So the people, they do not have money, there should be no production, nothing will be there. So the trade will shrink during the depression and it will be flourishes in the boom period, isn't it? So during the boom period, there will be more production, more employment, everything will be prosperity. So the trade will be flourish in the boom period. So cyclical also, the phases of trade cycle also, one of the causes for the BOB, disequilibrium. During the depression, the trade shrinks, the trade controls, there should be no trade. During the boom period, there will be much trade, more trade. So the first one is cyclical fluctuation. And the second one is structural changes. This also we studied. Changes in the structures, infrastructure, development and other things. Structural changes. So by the changes, by the huge development and the investment programs in the developing economics, isn't it? So if the government invested more item, if there is more autonomous investment, there will be a changes in the development. In the developing countries, there will be some development. So it will bring a structural changes, the infrastructure and the projects and other things, make a changes in the infrastructure. In such economies, it have the high propensity to import for want of capital, isn't it? So during the period of changes, the nation needs more money to develop. So it has to import more capital. So it has to get more money. So the trade will be, so they will import so many things and they will export so many things, though there will be receipts and payments will be there. So capital for rapid industrialization, export may not be boosted up to that extent. So they import so many things for their structural changes. For example, if they are importing the machineries for industrial development, if there is a development in the industry, if they need the machines, if they are going to import that particular machines in the foreign countries, there will be more import. But after the production only, after the excess production only, they will export. So immediate structural changes increase the import, more import. Not only the money, but also the machineries, capital goods, machineries and other things, technologies and other things. So structural changes is one of the causes for the BOB disequilibrium. And development expenditure. The third one is development expenditure. What do you mean by development expenditure? By the economic development, as we studied the structural changes, because of the economic development, it will bring effects in the income and also the price effect, isn't it? the less developed countries, they are not self-sufficient in the beginnings. Like India and other countries, while they are developing in the economic process, while they are in the process of development, in the initial stages, they need more import, they cannot export. And also, they may not be self-sufficient in the initial stages, isn't it? Now, if they started the economic growth is only started at the beginning stage of the economic growth or economic development, they will be less self-sufficient, isn't it? They will produce things, it will be consumed by themselves. They can't export to other countries. So, in that time, the savings and the investment are very low because all the things will be consumed, isn't it? In the earlier stages, they may not self-sufficient. They produce goods. It should be consumed by all the people. So, there will be no savings. The income, all the income will be used for consumption. There should be no savings, which leads to the less investment. And they depend upon developed countries for import of commodities, isn't it? If they are less self-sufficient, they had to import from other countries for their needs, for their sufficiency. So at that time, they not only import the commodities, capital and technology. So in the initial stages, for such developing countries or underdeveloped countries, in the initial stages, they are less self-sufficient, they are less in technological improvement and other things. So automatically they depend on the developed countries not only for the commodities but for also the technological capital and other things. So in that time, export is very low and import will be very high. So it will be the one of the causes for BOB. If the export is less and import is more, automatically there will be a disequilibrium. So because of the development process, the imports will be more and the exports will be less because they have started, they are in the initial stage. They have to do many things to develop them. So initial stages, they will import the machineries, technology from other countries. So at that time, the imports will be more and exports will be less. This will bring disequilibrium in the BOB. And consumerism. What do you mean by that? People, they tend to consume. Consumption of many goods. People, they are going on consuming things. If they are not self-sufficient, they have to import that goods from the countries, other countries, isn't it? So, because of the increase in the consumption, increase in the consumption leads to increase in the imports. They go on consuming in the domestic or in the mother country. If it is not possible to content their self-sufficiency, they have to get from the other countries. So they have to import. If the consumption is increased, it leads to the increase in the import and the exports will be less. It is adversely affected the BOB. So there will be disequilibrium which is not favorable to the country. It is an unfavorable BOB. And the next one is demonstration effect. This already you have studied. Have you remembered, girls? Demonstration effect. Duesenberry's hypothesis we have studied. What do you mean by demonstration effect? Imitating others, isn't it? On that Duesenberry's hypothesis we learn in the psychological law, we learn in the objective factors. People, they tend to imitate the rich people, isn't it? Because of that, the consumption will be increased. The same way, here also, people are influenced by the Western styled goods, isn't it? We people, we are also intended, isn't it? Sometimes we used to buy the foreign goods. We feel that proud. We feel proud that if we have any foreign commodities or foreign goods in our hand, or it's there in at home, we feel proud. So for that purpose, we are importing so many goods. If, we can see so many people while they are coming from Dubai, Singapore and Malaysia, they used to bring the big TV systems and other things. Though we are producing in our country, we mainly depend on the foreign goods. We thought that that will be very good. Those are fine in qualities. But what it means, we are imitating the Western styled goods, which affects the BOB. If you buy all the things, if you are getting all the things from the foreign countries, your own country's productions and also sale will be affected. So because of the imitation of the Western style goods, the propensity to import increase, and which may adverse the balance of payment. This is good for the developed countries such like India. The nations like India is not, it's not very good for the country such like India. And then borrowing. Let me rub it and write the remaining. The sixth one is borrowing. What do you mean by borrowing? International borrowing and investment may cause a deficit in the balance of payment, isn't it? In such cases, in some cases, India, the countries like India, we used to borrow from IMF or World Bank, IBRD or some other financial institution for the development of the nation, isn't it? In the pandemic period, we used to buy money, the central government allotted money for us, the fund for us. Where they are getting the fund? They are getting funds sometimes from the World Bank, IMF. The World Bank is IBRD. So they are getting the fund from the IMF or IBRD and they are spending for their nation. It should be repaid, isn't it? Once if we borrowed from others, from the international financial institutions, we have to repay it. So if you go on borrow from the international financial institution, you have to repay it in a particular period of time. So it will affect at one point of time, the payments will be more than the receipts. You have to pay more for your debt, isn't it? Payments for debt will be more and what you are receiving from other countries will be less. So there will be a disequilibrium in the BOB. Do you understand? For international level, if you are borrowing for the development of the nation, whatever it may be, since we have to repay the loan with interest. So the underdeveloped countries are they have to pay a huge debt, a huge amount for repaying the debt. So automatically what they have to do, if they paid all the money as for a repayment, they need money for the further movement in their economy. So again they will borrow money. So it is go on, it's a circular one, cyclical one, isn't it? Once we borrowed money, then we will repay it. Again, if we do not have money, we have to borrow again. So it is a cyclic matter. So if the borrowing is more, there will be a disequilibrium in the BOB. And the technological backwardness. The undeveloped countries or developing countries, they are not technologically sound, isn't it? They are not technologically well versed. So, like India, we have so much of energy, solar energy. But we are not using for use this in a productive manner. Sometimes nowadays we have improved because last month only our Prime Minister Mr. Narendra Modi has surrendered the huge solar panel to the nation, isn't it? Which is situated near Gujarat. So those areas, they were that sun energy, solar energy, almost all the year, throughout the year. So with the help of that solar energy, they can use the energy in a productive manner. So they are used to, like India, they are unable to use the energy which is available with us. So as a result, we used to get huge petroleum from the UAE countries, isn't it? We have this solar energy. Instead using this, we are getting petroleum from the UAE countries. So if you are going to import the petroleum, you have to do the payments, isn't it? Instead, if you use this energy which is there available in abundance with you, we are not depending on the other countries. So technologically we need improvement. So this leads to disequilibrium in the BOB. Instead of using the abundance energy with us, we are importing the fuel or the energy from other countries. So we have to do the payments for the petroleum that we are importing. It leads to the disequilibrium in the BOB. And then global politics. The developed countries, national level, isn't it? Global politics. The countries like US and USSR, they will concentrate only on the production of the weapons, isn't it? They never concentrate on the consumer goods. So they produced weapons in large amount, nuclear, atoms, isn't it? So they are producing their weapon and they wanted to sell their weapons to the countries because they are very strong in their power. The nations which are very strong, they used to produce the huge weapons. Now we bought the Rafale flights, isn't it? So we are depending on other countries for getting the weapons and other things. The developed countries, particularly the developed countries, we are depending on developed countries to purchase the weapons and other things. So they are producing the weapons and they have to sell because they are all developed nation. They are very rich in the economy. So they used to sell. Then the wars are stimulated. If we buy the if they are going on producing the weapons, what would happen one day? The war comes, all the countries, they will, if the countries which are participating in the war, they will be destroyed, ruined, isn't it? So, the producing of weapons, stimulating the wars, stimulating the controversy between countries. So, to protect us, all the countries, to protect themselves, they too have to buy weapons, isn't it? நம்மளும் இப்போ அப்படிதானடா, நல்ல பலம் பொருந்திய நாடுகள், வளர்ச்சி அடைந்த நாடுகள் ஒண்ணுக்கு ஒண்ணு சண்டை போட்டுக்கிறாங்க. They are using the powerful weapons. அப்படின்னா நமக்கு ஒரு பயம் வரும். We do not have those weapons. So we have to buy. We should keep ourselves safe. We have to protect ourselves. நம்மளும் என்ன செய்ய ஆரம்பிப்போம்? We started buying the weapons from the rich countries. So it leads to the global politics. So they are getting more. We started importing the weapons from the developed countries. So they will export more weapons to the countries which are poor in the protection and other things. So it leads to the disequilibrium in the BOB. So these are the 8 causes of disequilibrium in the BOB. Cyclical, structural changes, development expenditure, consumerism, demonstration effect, borrowing, technological backwardness, and global politics. So these are the causes for disequilibrium. In the next class, we will see what are the measures to be taken to correct the disequilibrium in BOB. That we will see in the next class. Thank you, girls.